Hello, sir.
What up, buddy? How you doing?
Oh, I'm good, man. I'm
Yeah.
good.
It's been a good 4 days, hasn't it?
It's been awesome. It's
It
been
feels like
really
it's 4 days feels like it's been like 3 or 4 months. Like when I was talking to my wife tonight and she was like, when did he actually get sworn in? And I was like, well, it was on the 20th. And then I had to stop and I was like, today's the 23rd. Like it's only been 3 days. There's a lot going on in 3 days.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
I want to first start off. You mentioned this the other day after we got off air, and we were gonna revisit it. But I want to
okay.
hear the story about when you got tackled by Secret Service.
Oh man, I got a picture. I'll slice the picture into here. I'll be quick with this. Good buddy of mine, both of ours was in the Corps at Texas A&M back out of high school, and I went down there to, I went and stayed with our buddy Lawrence, and I got off work at 11 p.m. Drank the whole way while driving to College Station. Got there and
Gosh.
continued drinking, so I never slept. I had a 1 liter Aquafina bottle full of vodka that I took to the game with me. And I went to go watch our buddy like march through the quad. I don't know what the right term is, but he was marching through the quad with the Corps on his way into the stadium. And after they all passed through, I was standing there and all of a sudden, like some guys wearing like sport coats, like not full suits, but like blazers and like earpieces. I didn't notice the earpiece at first, but like we're kind of clearing an area. So I was like, oh shit, like what's going on here? Some officials happening. And a couple SUVs pull up and George H.W. Bush gets out of the SUV. And there's not a lot of security. Like they kind of had like a corridor for him to walk through, but it wasn't they kind of it seemed like a lack of security to me. Anyhow, I was a little drunk. Remember the disposable cameras that you would like wind?
Uh-huh.
I threw that camera to our buddy's dad, and I was like, "Take my picture with the president." He was the ex-president at the time, and I was drunk as hell, and I went running at him to get my picture with him, like Mr. Bush, like running full speed. And I'll tell you this: once I broke through like the little clear area, like the corridor they had cleared, I don't think I made it another step or two past that, and I got taken down so easily. Like I think four people took me down at once, and it was like they took me right down. Um, What's funny is at one point while I was on the ground, I looked over and they had taken HW down too. Like they took him to the ground, like protect the
Oh,
egg style, like got on top of him in case there was a
you were a
gunman.
threat.
Yeah, I'm lucky I didn't get shot. Like I very well could have been shot that day and they would have been within their rights. And it was funny because when I was on the ground, I was telling them, I was like, I just wanted a picture with him and this and that. And I heard him at one point say, let him up, and we can do a picture. And we went over there and you know how every picture you ever see with the president, like people are standing straight and you do like a handshake in front, like it's kind of a
Uh-huh.
very official thing. I leaned in and like put my hands on his shoulders and was like, like for the picture. He was totally cool with it. In the picture you can see my Aquafina 1 liter bottle that was full of vodka. Um, and I remember my friend's dad told me at that point, he was like, you could have been shot, but I was so drunk I really was like, whatever, and went about my day. And then after like sobering up and probably a couple days later, I realized I was like, oh, that was the dumbest thing I've done in a while. So yeah, don't run at a current or former president screaming ever.
Yeah.
It's just a bad
Yeah.
idea.
It's
Yeah.
good.
So
Yeah.
I was
Good advice
excited
for
to
the
see
day.
that was in 2003 or four. And I was very much pro Bush. Like I thought W was killing things. I liked W's dad. Like so seeing HW for me at that point in time was a big deal. I'll tell you what, if I saw W right now, even with how terrible the end of his presidency ended, I still like him as a person. And if W was somewhere, I would probably panic and do the same thing and run at him screaming, "Let me get a picture with you, W." It'd be a fun picture. So, anyhow, yeah, that's that story.
Yeah. Maybe we should seek him out, find out where he's speaking, and we can recreate this scene.
Yeah, so it was fun times. Anywho, real quick, I wanna revisit one thing we talked about in the last episode. The Elon and what all the media is calling it is Elon's awkward hand gesture. That's what they,
Oh,
and I think it's because wants to make sure they don't get sued. Because if you say it's a Sig Heil and then Elon sues you for defamation, like
well,
even
Germany's saying it's a Sig Heil.
the white supremacists, like the Nazis, think it was a Sig Heil. Either way, you're opening yourself up for a lawsuit, and Elon's got more money. Like he's got enough money to, and it's just one of those where it would be a nuisance lawsuit where they'd end up paying him to go away or whatever. Anyhow, so
Right.
they're all dancing around it. But the best I've heard several people try to defend that it was not a Sig Heil. Okay, and I'm not buying most of the defenses, But Sagar on breaking points. He was very frustrated about the whole thing, and he said, what did he say? He said he's a high functioning autistic weirdo, and he does weird things. And that's just get over it. He's a high functioning autistic weirdo, and he does weird things. And I was like, you know what? That's the best explanation I've heard. Is like he kind of, and he was like, yeah, he was spazzing out on stage. He was jumping around and pumping his fist. That I'll buy that. Yes, he does some weird shit. He's autistic. I mean,
Maybe, maybe. I
yeah,
don't know, man. Did you see that they put that on the Tesla factory in Germany?
yeah.
Like they
They
put
like did it with
that
a
photo and
projector.
they said, hey, yeah, it says Hail Tesla or
Yeah.
Sig Tesla.
The other option that I think is probably the most accurate is that he did it and he was doing it to troll. He was doing it for attention and to get everybody riled up, and I think that's the most likely scenario. I don't think he hates
That's
Jews. There's enough evidence that he doesn't dislike Jews,
yeah.
but to me that's a very obvious Sig Heil. I don't think he had the intent to be like anti-Jew. It's just that seemed like a very obvious one. But anyhow,
I think he's just trolling.
yeah, the first successful lawsuit happened, or not lawsuit, but temporary injunction has happened in the Trump era. His ending of birthright citizenship. I don't know if you saw
All
this,
that. Yeah.
but a judge, Trump said that he was like, oh boy, they went shopping and found a specific judge, like kind of saying it was a Democratic judge.
He's a Republican
Yeah,
judge
it was
from
one that
like Reagan.
he
Reagan
was
nominated him.
he was appointed by Reagan, and his exact quote was, I've been on the bench for over 4 decades. I can't remember another case where the question presented is as clear as this one. This is a blatantly unconstitutional order. So, like, not only did he slapped it down. Now, doesn't matter what he said, it is eventually going to get to the Supreme Court, and he could lose in his first term, there were several things where he lost at every level, at the appellate level and all that, all the way to the Supreme Court. Then he won at the Supreme Court because we have a 6-3 majority of Republicans on there. So,
Yeah.
but that's his whole goal is to get it to the Supreme Court. So
Yeah, and that's going to be an interesting one because
yeah,
it's blatantly obvious in the Constitution. And yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
yeah,
Hopefully our Supreme Court holds tough.
we'll
I
see.
don't get what does he have over the Supreme Court just because he nominated or put him in their
See,
cabinet? Like I don't get it.
the thing, some of them were already there and are already kind of I would call them fundamentalists. They're like, how when it comes to religion, like there's good religious people, but if you tell me someone's a religious fundamentalist, like right away I'm like, that's not good. Like that's just any fundamentalist anything isn't good. And there are some fundamentalist conservative Republicans that were already there. Like Clarence Thomas is a great example. And then he was very strategic. 2 out of the 3 that he put on there are going to do whatever Fox News is saying they should do at the time. Like, and that's Amy Coney Barrett and Gorsuch. Or not Gorsuch. Who's the one that had all the sexual assault claims? I can't remember his name.
Kavanaugh.
Kavanaugh. Now I think Gorsuch seems like a pretty stand-up dude, but he doesn't really say a lot, and he didn't have a lot of baggage, so I don't know a lot about him. But either
Hmm.
way, I said this a week or two before the inauguration. All of the terrible, like the most terrible stuff he's going to do, there's immediately going to be a lawsuit and a court injunction, and then it's going to have to work its way through the courts, and he'll probably eventually get it passed, but he'll have to water it down big time and change certain things to get
Hmm.
it to a point where it'll pass. But that's why I was saying, don't panic about the really crazy shit because it'll go through the courts. So that's where we're at now.
Yeah, did you see these Jan 6ers who are out? The one that just got rearrested already on gun
Saw that.
charges.
Yeah, I saw that was in Florida, I think. So a J sixer from Florida is like the ultimate. Like that's a fun
And
dude.
there's a handful of them, they're calling for retribution. They like look like they're looking for a fight. They're out of
Yeah.
jail, ready to start swinging. Even
Apparently
the ones that like pled guilty are like,
the DOJ apparently did have the decency to call several of the cops. Like there were cops who testified against these people, like in court, and they called those cops just to be like, "Hey, heads up, the guy that you testified against in court and he's out, and he's probably mad at you. So lock your doors." Like that was kind of the
he's probably upset. So,
yeah. So
God.
anyhow, so we got that going on. The immigration raids have started. Uh, I was laughing so hard because on day one, like Trump and the White House and all them put out this big like our first day on the job, and we deported or we rounded up 308 illegals today, and apparently on under the Biden presidency, the average is 310. That's about what ICE picks up in a day is
Oh,
310. So they
okay.
celebrated and said we got 308, and then everybody pointed out that hey, that's actually two less than Biden would do on a standard day, and that's a dumb thing. Democrats were like dunking on Trump, like, oh, what you only got 308. What is he going to do to respond to that? So that was just as I was watching people trying to dunk on him for not deporting enough people. I'm like, dude, like, anyhow. So they went out today and officially started like the raids, and they raided a couple places in New Jersey. Now, during this, there's a stink about it right now because they rounded up and detained a lot of U.S. citizens, like just people that appeared to be immigrants, and like detained them, including one veteran that was in the army. And the mayor of this New Jersey town was very big on the point that they didn't even have a warrant. Like, if you're going to do an immigration raid, you have to have a warrant signed by a
Oh
judge.
yeah. Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think that's going to be the next thing that's going to go through the courts, and the raids will. I think we'll have like a week of raids, and then there'll be injunctions to stop that. We'll see. They got to get a warrant. I mean, if they have suspicion that there are if there's a company that's hiring 400 illegals to do something, and they can get a warrant, then I honestly don't mind them going in there and checking that out. Like that. Let me say this real quick. I'm gonna People point this out about Texas all the time, but in Texas they always talk about the immigrants and this and that. And the easiest way to get rid of the Mexicans crossing the border would be to start penalizing the employers, because if the jobs aren't here, they're not coming. And they
Yeah.
won't do that. They want to complain about it, but they know that the jobs are needed, so they'll never penalize the employers. But that's the easiest way to take care of things. Anyhow, uh,
Yeah. Yeah. I saw something funny where it was saying if you see an ice agent, just run just to tie them up for a little
just
bit.
I'm not running from anybody. I'm too tired. If I saw a killer walking towards me, I'd just sit down. I'd be like, do it. Like, I'm not running.
I don't care.
Oh, hey, I wanted to point out something real quick. I realized that you were out MAGAing me, and I'm not going to let you out MAGA me anymore. I got my American
Yeah.
flag up behind me. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. It's not
MAGA,
MAGA. This is America, bro. I'm an
MAGA to you,
American
brother.
citizen.
Yep.
I'm
So,
a proud American.
well, one of our mutual friends that we fished with was telling me today he has a fishing hat that has like the American flag and like a fish or whatever. And he's like, I can't wear it anymore because every time I'm out somewhere, like people just see it and assume I'm a Trump supporter and start talking to me about Trump. And he's like, it's got to be the hat. And I was like, that's we kind of did lose the American flag in that whole, like, in the
I'm
divorce.
taking it back. I'm trying to take it back,
Yeah,
Andy.
I think we should do it. But yeah, if you wear a shirt with the American flag or a hat with the American flag, like you're kind of saying MAGA to the world, in my opinion.
That's so
I,
dumb.
I think that's just the way it is, though.
That's
Uh,
not a good way to look at it. We can't let them take it back, Andy. You got to change
yeah.
your viewpoint on that.
Ooh, speaking of friends, I think I might have told you about this already. But we have one friend that is a Trump voter that actually texted me the other day, and he was like, "Hey, I wish I don't want to pull it up and read it word for word. I don't want to say it exactly, but he was basically like, "Hey, isn't it kind of weird that like all these billionaires were at the inauguration and like Trump's like filling his all the people around him are but like, isn't that not good for us?" And I was like, "Yes, like that's this is this is what this has been obvious the whole time. This is how it's going to be." But I give him credit because he was like, and he even said at one
Wait a
point
second.
he was like, I don't think they care about grocery prices, and I was like, of course they don't. Like, I'm so glad to hear you realizing this. So one person has woken. I don't think a lot of them are gonna, but one person is at least looking around, going, "Hey, doesn't seem as good."
That's
Speaking
hilarious.
speaking of that, I went down the greatest rabbit hole the other night. Are you ready for the new fun thing? I have weird kinks where like I like to watch I love videos on YouTube where a cop walks up and taps on the window and the person like barely cracks it and starts spouting the sovereign citizen bullshit. That's my
Oh yeah.
favorite thing in the world, and it never works out for them. They always end up in the back of a cop car, but they're very sure. Then they always tell the cop, "You don't know the law." Like things like that bring me pleasure. I found a new kink last night.
Okay.
Do you know anything about this? It started as a $100 billion investment, but now Trump is saying it's really a $500 billion investment. This is going to be just like Foxconn, the plant that was supposed to open in Wisconsin and bring all these jobs that never actually happened.
Yeah. The eighth wonder of the world.
I have a strong feeling this is going to be just like Foxconn, but they announced, I mean, I'm going to call it a $500 billion open AI project that apparently the government's not putting any money into, which is that I don't understand the partnership with the government, but it's Sam Altman. Have you seen anything about this?
Um. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. And Elon's mad because he's giving him Sam Altman money.
You call them Leon. So
Leon, yeah.
so Trump clarified today and said the government's not paying any money in this. Again, I don't buy that. I want to see how this is worked out contract wise because I think the government is putting money into it. But Trump said no. Elon came out and said that Altman doesn't have 500 billion, and Altman shot back and was like, "Yeah, we do. We apparently he's got investors. One of them being the CEO of Oracle, Larry Ellison. Do you know anything about this guy?"
Okay, I don't know much about him. No.
Please go on YouTube or Twitter or something and look at clips of this guy. I beg everybody to do that. But he speaks all the time about how like once we have like AI and security cameras all over, like everybody will be on their best behavior because we'll always be watching. Like all the shit that
Oh,
MAGA,
this.
all the stuff that MAGA people are very against and afraid that Democrats are going to do to them. Like this guy's been talking about for a while. Like it's this guy's dream. Oracle started as like what they did is they were a database for the CIA like that. So he's basically a contractor for the CIA, and his company has
Okay.
just grown out of control. So part of the announcements during the OpenAI stuff was this guy Larry Ellison, the Oracle CEO, and he is saying that they're going to do. I wish I could remember all the technical terms here, but basically they're going to use AI to detect cancer. Like everybody will get their blood taken every so often, every couple of years, whatever, and it'll get run through this AI machine. Now, right there, MAGA doesn't like the idea of giving their blood and their DNA to the government or to anybody,
Yeah.
but AI is going to detect the cancer, and then within 48 hours, AI will be able to make an mRNA vaccine to cure you
Oh.
of the cancer. And
Oh.
Trump's Allison's talking about this, and Trump's like, "This is great." And immediately, like it was more of the Maha, Make American Healthy Again, but a lot of it was everybody who's anti-COVID jab immediately was like, "Whoa!" Like it's funny because if I try to bring up that, like, hey, remember Trump did Operation Warp Speed to develop the mRNA vaccine, and they'll always argue with me, well, he was just listening to the Democrat or he was listening to Fauci, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But here he is now announcing that, hey, we're gonna roll out basically Warp Speed 2.0. Like now we're gonna do it for cancer. It's called Stargate, and I spent a whole evening on Twitter just reading MAGA type people that were like very pissed, and they're all begging RFK to step in. They're like RFK needs to step in and get a hold of Trump right now and explain to him that this is bad. RFK ain't gonna do shit. I'm telling you right now. Like
No.
this is a
RFK
money
has
deal.
he's
Yeah.
got his position, his power. That's all he really
Yep.
wanted.
Well, and
Yeah.
we'll talk RFK in a minute, but this is the fact that on day two, Trump announces that we're going to do a new mRNA vaccine. Like he must be getting, there must be a lot of money attached to this somehow because you would think that he would know right now that most of his voters don't like the term. Like he should never say the term mRNA again. Like that's a term that they really hate. And now he's announced
Hmm.
we're gonna use mRNA and AI to cure cancer. There's a lot of words there, a lot of letters there. So that has been a fight with MAGA, and then you throw on top of that the whole Elon hates Sam Altman, and like Trump announces this big beautiful thing that he's so proud of, and immediately afterward, Elon goes on Twitter and starts shitting all over it and saying that it's not going to work and this and that. And Sam Altman was apparently a Democrat, like a big money Democrat donor, up until like this election. Like this election, he was pumping money in to defeat Trump, and then as soon as Trump won,
Oh,
he's like, "Oh, hey, I'm going to do $100 billion investment for AI. Actually, let's make it 500 million." And Trump's like, okay, like, so the guy totally
well,
bought. The guy is buying his way into Trump's good graces. So
of course.
I
Yes.
said if I owned a company, I'd be doing the same thing. Like I hate it sucks to look at, but if you own a company and your choices were to either kiss up to Trump or try to fight him, one way is going to be bad for your company, man. It just is. Like Trump's going to use,
Probably.
yeah. And you have employees. You have to, I mean, if your company goes under, your employees are going out of a job. I don't I don't blame them for doing it. It's just kind of funny how obviously transactional it is. Like it's like
Oh
Trump is
yeah.
just strictly transactional, and if you're willing to say on TV that you like him and then give money, like he's all about it.
So bad.
Yeah.
So bad.
So
Oh, I mean, do we talk about his meme coin? His
I don't think we
crypto meme
did, and
coin?
I don't
He made
understand.
like $30 billion on this thing. And he's just
Apparently,
ripping off his people. Like
apparently he
whoever.
doesn't have that money. Like the value is there, but like he can't cash out right now. I don't understand how crypto works when you launch one of these, but apparently, like, yes, that is valued at that. And if he tried to like take out a loan or whatever, he could claim that value as his,
Hmm.
but he can't actually take it out right now. And it's dropped like His dropped like 70% from its peak, and Melania's has dropped 80% from its peak. Now he's still,
Oh,
if it stays where it's at, he still cashes in. But like I all those crypto things, like this, from what I read, this is exactly what the Hawk Tuah girl did, where she like
yeah.
there's a name for it. It has to do with pulling out the rug on your investors or so. I can't remember what it is. I wish I knew more about crypto, but
So
I
it
don't.
has to sit there for a year or so before you can
I
pull
think
out.
so. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, but it'll still be worth. I mean, the thing about crypto is it starts as nothing.
Yeah.
Is that you or me?
What?
Nothing. I thought I heard Siri a second ago, or like Alexa. Oh, it
Oh,
was
not
probably
me.
her. Yeah, I got one of those at my desk, and she hears me say the name occasionally. So anyhow, um, switching to world news real quick. Have you seen what's going on in Israel?
No.
So this is not the first part of it's not comical. The second part of it's kind of comical. Um, they signed the whole ceasefire deal in Gaza. A couple people pointed out that that deal specifically did not say shit about the West Bank, like the other side of the country where there's Palestinians. So like
Okay.
that was not mentioned at all. So they signed the ceasefire, and the very next day, and this has been getting no coverage, but the very next day, Israeli soldiers and tanks and whatnot rolled into a couple different cities in the West Bank. And Netanyahu's calling it a military operation to root out terrorism. So they're going door to door arresting men aged 15 to 40 or something. I don't know, just taking everybody. Um, so that's been kind of crazy. It's been going on for 2 or 3 days at this point, and we're not talking like it's barely getting covered. But then what's funny is apparently in Jerusalem there's a spot where there is Palestinian refugees like in a camp, like it's a refugee camp in the middle of Palestine or in the middle of Jerusalem, and
Okay.
some Israeli, like some Israeli extremists. I guess they'd be like our far right, like the Proud Boys. I'm gonna call them. They're like the Proud Boys of Israel. Um,
Okay.
they decided to put some masks on and go into the camp and start like beating up and tearing down their tents and being hooligans in there. The
Okay.
police showed up and saw masked men, and nobody likes to talk about this, but the Israelis and the Palestinians look exactly alike, like skin color and everything. Like they're the same people for the most part. So they just saw
Don't
ra-
say that.
they they just saw men that were wearing masks and they thought they were Palestinians. So they opened fire on those guys who were actually Israelis. Critically wounded two of them. I don't think they've died yet, but apparently they're like hanging on by a thread. And they shot a couple
Dang.
more of them. This has now resulted in riots in Jerusalem where the people are rioting because they're mad the cops shot Israelis. They really don't care about the Palestinians at all, but the
Yeah.
fact that Israelis got shot, they're mad. So there's riots happening in Jerusalem, and there's a military operation going on in the West Bank right now. So all is not all is not peaceful over there right now. Even though we're under a ceasefire, it's not really happening. So
Absolutely not.
yeah.
Damn.
So
Ah,
I'll
well,
say this: the other most disturbing news that I have, bird flu. We got
bird
60
flu.
we got 66 cases in America right now, one death. So
That's still
far,
happening?
yeah, so far no human transmission, which is the key. As soon as it starts, if it finds a way, and apparently these viruses are always mutating and whatnot, but if it
Yeah.
finds a way to go human to human, that's when like it'll spread quick. Right now we don't have that. Um, Trump
All
told
right,
this.
I'm adjusting my light a little bit here.
Oh, you're good. Um, Trump told the CDC on day one to cease all public communications, period. No more health advisories. Nobody knows if that's a temporary thing or if that's just going forward. But the CDC can no longer, like normally they would put out and be like, hey, we've got so and so many cases of bird flu in America today. Everybody please use the precautions. Or they would say some shit like that. Um,
Right.
he doesn't want them doing that at all. And if you think back to COVID, remember he was saying the whole time during COVID that the problem is we're testing too much. And every doctor would have said the testing is the key. We're basically going to test our way out of this. And
Yeah.
Trump was saying, no, it makes me look bad. We have so many cases. The only reason we have this many cases is because we're testing too much. So
Yeah.
this hasn't been said yet, but with him ceasing all community, I think that we're not going to track bird flu deaths, we're not going to track cases, and we're not going to put out any guidance. Which, if it stays to where there's no human transmission, we should be cool. This shouldn't be a deal. But if it starts to be human transmission, like people are just gonna, it's gonna be weird. We're not gonna have the information. Like we're not gonna know how many cases. We're not gonna know if we should be careful and avoid the bird flu, or potentially nobody's gonna like hearing this, but potentially put on a mask if you're going out in public because
What
bird flu
is
is
this
killing
whole
people.
thing with this, like, not wanting to let us know that people are dying in America?
Like I said, and nobody maybe. maybe he told them to cease all communications till RFK could get his people in there, and maybe then after that they're going to fire him back up. Nobody knows what's going on. Just right now,
Seems
they've
like a
gone
bad
dark. There's
idea.
I found a page on the CDC website talking about bird flu, and it was last updated January 18th, so 2 days before the inauguration. Has not been updated since. I actually saved it to my favorites, and I'm going to check back regularly to see if there's any that shows cases, deaths, spread. It shows cases by state. California has the most cases. Um,
So then somebody has to like fill in with that, right?
They can't
There's
because
got to
it's
be
it's HIPAA type stuff. You can't call the I guess you can't call hospitals if you're a news reporter and be like, hey, first of all, who's got the time to call every hospital in America and tally up and see how many
news
cases? And
reporters,
it'd have to be
news
but
report interns,
yeah.
yeah.
So that the
But
government normally tracks that, and they're not going. I don't think they're going. I'll be shocked, and maybe RFK will turn out to be really good at his job. But it's looking like we're just going to put our head in the sand and not talk about bird flu.
that's not a good idea. That
Yeah,
means like if there's an outbreak here where I live, like I would like to know so that I don't
yeah,
get out of the house and go mingle with people who have bird flu.
yep. Well, we're if there is a bird flu outbreak or whatever, then because there's going to be a next one. I don't know if it'll happen under Trump, but there's going to be another pandemic at some point. And the moment that anybody from the CDC or anything starts to tell people like, "Hey, use precautions, social distance, and wear masks," I think like 60% of America is going to tell them to go f themselves and not do that. Like I think it's more than during COVID. I think a lot of people since COVID have been
You think
brought.
60%?
Yeah,
Wow.
I know a
Oh,
lot of I know a lot of Democrats now who will say stuff like, oh yeah, the mask turned out to be bullshit. And I'm like, no, they didn't. Like you've heard that on podcasts, but like they actually really saved our case. Anyhow, I'm not gonna relitigate that with people, but I think that I think we're in big trouble for the next one, is all I'm gonna say. Especially if the government's not tracking it. So I hope RFK gets in and at least track just track it and maybe tell people, hey, it's not mandatory. You don't have to do any of these things, but some common practices to stay safe would be, and put out a list of, wash your hands, whatever it is. I don't know if we're gonna
yeah.
have that. So anyhow,
Yeah, I
but
don't think your neighbors are gonna buy any of that. So,
yeah, but I will say, I got a good thing. I want to praise Trump a little bit. Okay,
oh,
um,
crazy.
praising for Trump. My biggest thing that I was scared about with Trump was that he's going to pull out of NATO and he's going to leave Ukraine and other allies hanging out to dry. Like that just,
Okay.
I was pretty sure of that.
Other
He
allies like Israel?
Taiwan, Taiwan's the
Oh,
big one that's under threat right now. But also all those, the former Eastern Soviet bloc, like Lithuania, Estonia, like those Finland, all those countries that Putin would really love to get back again. Like that's my worry. Trump is talking a big game against Putin right now, which it's all talk. We'll see what happens. But he said, I think it was today, he said that Zelensky wants to negotiate and get a deal done. Putin's the one that's causing a stink, which that's what our government has been saying for a year and a half. But Trump and all of his talk, with Rogan and all them, keep trying to say like, no, Putin wants peace, and it's actually Zelensky. And it's funny because Trump completely flipped that today and said, no, Zelensky wants peace. It's Putin that's being a problem, which is accurate. I'm glad to hear him say that. Um, but he said that either Putin needs to come to the table right now and negotiate an end to this, or he's going to hit him with new sanctions and tariffs. And there's one, and the Biden administration was sanctioning Russia, but the one thing they wouldn't touch was the energy exports. And there was a reason that, like, that's how you could cripple Russia the fastest. But Russia exports all of its natural gas mainly, but it's a lot of different energy things. But they export it to Europe, to France and Germany and all them. And if we either cut that off or sanction it or whatever, it would cost people in those countries in Europe, France, Spain, it would cost them a bunch more to heat their houses. So it would cause
right.
it would cause energy inflation in Europe if we did that. And Trump is like, I don't care about Europe. Like, I'm going to put sanctions on the natural gas. Like, this will cripple Russia's economy easily, and game over. Like,
Hmm.
so that's his threat to Putin right now. We'll see what actually ends up happening in negotiations, but I'm at least proud. I'm gonna say I'm a little proud that he's standing up for our ally. I hope it holds, but right now, what he's talking is what I want to hear on that. So, hail Trump right now on that
Well,
topic. Yeah. Um, he also said he wants NATO countries to increase their spending to 5%. It's currently It's currently a target goal of 2%, meaning you don't have to hit it, but that's what we want you to try to get close to 2%.
Fair.
Certain countries haven't been getting close to 2%. He wants to raise it to 5%. We spend, I think it's like I wonder what it is. I want to say like 8% of our GDP is on defense spending, but that might be wrong. Hold on.
I think it's more than that.
Yeah, let's see
Yeah.
here.
We
No, 3.4% on defense is what it says.
is it?
Yeah,
That's it?
3.4. China spent 1.2. He wants everybody to go to 5%, and that's going to hurt some economies. Like, yeah, let's just focus on getting everybody to 2 is kind of where I'm at. But the fact that he's even talking that way kind of that means that he might stay in NATO. Like it's not for sure yet, but he might stay in NATO, and I really would like to see NATO stand. He was talking a big game about leaving NATO. I think that Republicans in Congress have gotten to him and explained to him why that'd be a terrible idea. I'm hoping I think that's what's happened on a lot of this is that now that he's in office, people are explaining to him that, hey, if you do that, it's going to make China more powerful or Russia or whatever. And so
Yeah.
he's hearing the other side that he should have known all along, or maybe he
Yeah.
did all along, but May,
Yeah.
yeah.
Just talk. He talks. So he talks a lot, and a lot of it's just dumb.
He I I've been trying to think of a way to explain this. I can think it in my head, but I can't verbalize it. But he's really good at saying two totally different messages on the same topic. Like on abortion, he'll tell the religious people that there's never been anybody more pro-life than me. But then he'll also say, no, no, I think it should be left up to the states, and I'm not trying to put an abortion ban in. And if
Yeah.
you try to tell one side or the other, like, hey,
I think
but
6 weeks is a little too quick to
yeah,
decide.
but he always will say a little bit of both sides, and
Yeah.
you can choose to only hear the thing he said that you're good with, and be like, no,
Yeah.
he didn't say that other stuff, and it's like, no, he did say that other stuff, but because he does that, he gets in these situations now where he's trying to do a new mRNA vaccine, where it's like people are like, what? Like, and it's like, well, if you listen closely, he was saying that he's pro-vaccine, but he was also telling other groups that he was this, and he gets it'll cause problems when he actually gets in office and starts doing things. But for the purpose of running an election, it's kind of an amazing thing where he can be on both sides of an argument and nobody calls BS on it. Not nobody on his side. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even like with
You
the
got both
immigration,
sides of every argument almost.
yeah, immigration, we got to get all the immigrants out of here, but also we need to bring in a lot more foreign workers. Like what are we doing here, man? It's a skill. I'm gonna say it is a skill that he utilizes where he can be on both sides of an argument and he just leaves it a little vague. Like, yeah, we might
Yeah.
have to leave NATO. I'm gonna give it serious thought, but like, no, but I also this and that. And it's like, how do you do that? And it's just, I think it's being shameless. Like you just lie. Whoever you're talking to, tell them what. And an author is writing a book right now, and they were talking about that on one of the news channels, saying that like his greatest strength, really, truly listen to this. His greatest strength is that he can walk up to somebody and he knows what they need to hear, and he'll tell them
Yep.
whatever it is they need to hear. But nobody else
Exactly.
in politics can identify that. Like if he's talking to a group of auto workers, he knows what they want to hear, and he'll tell them. It doesn't mean that he's going to stick to it or even try to do it when he becomes president. But right now in this moment, he's going to tell you what you need to hear to vote when it comes to Trump. I
I
think that
got
that's
elected.
something that
Yeah, twice.
I was going to say. Luckily, he's not going to run again because, like, I think he's really good at elections. Like that's Trump's strength is like when it comes to running for office, he's way better at that than he is at actually governing. Um, and
Yeah.
I wanted to say like at least he can't run again. But have you heard about the new bill that got proposed today? It's
Like removal of what is it, the Fourth Amendment?
I didn't see what amendment it was. It was Representative Andy Ogles from Tennessee, a Republican, is proposing a constitutional amendment to let Trump run for a third term. Now, Trump would be 83 years old at the end of this term. So, assuming that, here's what's sad is I'll bet money the House passes this. The House will easily pass it.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think the Senate will, so I don't. And I think I, I'm not sure about this, but I think it has to get three because it's a constitutional amendment. It can't just get 50%. It has to get like three quarters or something like that.
Uh,
I'm not sure if that's in the House or the Senate, but
they're
either
just
way,
wasting they're just wasting time
yeah.
voting on this.
Either way, I'll bet that every Republican in the House will vote for it. I don't know what they need to pass it, but I'm just calling that right now. So, anywho, the way Trump's first term ended, I'm kind of like the way I look at what's happening right now, I'm like, oh, this term is going to end kind of in disaster like the first. Like
Yeah.
one of my MAGA buddies has texted me almost every day since the election and been like, see, like things aren't going bad. Like this is like, is anything bad happening? And I'm just like, oh, the writing's on the wall, man. Like I don't know if you've seen, there's reports where like different like farms, like produce farms and like meat houses and stuff, where their workers just stop showing up because they're afraid
Yeah.
of deportation, and
Restaurants
like
and yeah.
restaurants. And it's like, yeah, the inflation's going to take, it's not going to, inflation's not going to hit on day two. Like it's going to take a couple weeks.
Yeah.
But between the tariffs that are set to go into effect February 1st, and I guess there's still a chance that he won't do it, but it seems like he's for sure gonna, the tariffs and then having like a workforce like shortage, like that's just going to be inflationary as hell. And like, there's not, I'd love to hear anybody argue that no, it's not going to cause inflation because it clearly will. That's the point of tariffs, or to drive the prices up. That's what a tariff is meant for.
Yeah. I want to
So
know who
it's
this guy is, and I also want you to turn him onto our podcast.
uh,
Like,
it's, I'll say this, he occasionally listens. I don't think he listens a lot, but every now and then he'll like, and when he sees me in person, he'll be like, "Hey, Trump," he'll try to like defend Trump on something where I only said it on the podcast, and I'm like, "Oh, you do listen." I knew it. Um, anyhow, speaking of Trump again, this was kind of hysterical to me. But Trump went on the second day of his presidency, so it's Tuesday. He went to the National Cathedral for a church service, which this is now the third time in all the time we've seen Trump since 2015. This is the third time that we know for sure that he's attended church.
yeah.
He did it
Horrible
twice as,
service.
or actually, he did it. No, so I'm not counting funerals and stuff. He's gone to some funerals, okay.
Okay.
But during his first presidency, one time he went to the National Cathedral and had like service, and then after he was president, I think it was right afterward, he like came in through like a side door during a church service and like waved to the crowd and talked to him a little bit, and then left right away. But I'm going to count that as number two. It was a Sunday morning, and he was in a church, so.
And then during protests
Well,
in
he went and
Washington.
held a Bible up in front. He didn't actually. I'm talking Sunday
Oh, but he
service.
held the Bible up upside down,
Yeah,
and on the way there, he asked who was it? He asked somebody if he could shoot, if they could just shoot him in the leg,
he
the
asked Mark
protesters.
Milley. Yeah, it was Milley, I believe, but he asked him if they could shoot the protesters in the leg, which is the most un-American thing ever. Anyhow, but anyhow, so he went to church. What could go wrong, right? Um, well, they're calling this woman the woke bishop, which is kind of a cool name, the woke bishop. Um,
Like
But
it.
she gave a speech that when you look at it, don't look at it through your political eyes, it is preaching the word of Jesus. Jesus, more than anything else in the Bible, Jesus talks about taking care of the poor and the less fortunate and this and that. That's what that book's primarily about. Um,
Forgiveness. Yeah.
her speech was about, hey, we have to have compassion. She said there are gay and lesbian and trans individuals who are scared right now, and
Yep.
like we need to show them compassion. And there are immigrants who are scared, and like basically showing compassion to those less fortunate than you. Exactly what the Bible's about. Like that's that's what the anyhow. And everybody in unison was like, "Oh, she's taking a shot at Trump." Not just Democrats, like Republicans were like, "Who does she think she is to be taking a
Oh,
shot at Trump?" And it's like,
he
wow,
knew it
when
in the moment. He knew she was taking a shot at him
it
because she
was
spoke directly to him.
his
And
whole
JD
family.
Vance, did you see JD
Oh
Vance?
yeah,
He
his
was
whole
looking at
family
it
was
as a
looking
lifeline.
around like they couldn't believe it was happening. Again, if the literal words of Jesus Christ you think are an attack on you, maybe you're doing some things wrong in life. I don't know.
Yeah.
But what's funny is because of that, I then saw that apparently 2 or 3 days before the election, they asked the Pope. I remember the Pope and Trump had a little spat the first time he was, and at one point somebody was like, "Who made him Pope?" And I thought that was the funniest thing ever. It's like, okay, well, anyhow. So the Pope, like 2 or 3 days before the election, had said that Trump's deportation plans were a disgrace, is what he called them, a
Hmm.
disgrace. And so there's been different elements of MAGA that are like tweeting at the Pope or on their shows. The one guy on
Wait, the Pope
Newsmax,
has a Twitter?
I think that the like the Vatican has a Twitter account. I think, or
Oh
maybe the
my
Pope
gosh.
does. I don't know.
Okay.
But there was a guy on Newsmax, and I can't remember his name for the life of me. But he was so up in arms at this, and he was like, he goes, "All right, Padre, you're way off base here, dude." And it's like, whoa, you just called the Pope Padre, and he actually suggested that Trump should do charter flights full of Mexican immigrants to the Vatican. Like, you remember
Huh?
when DeSantis and all them were busing immigrants to like Northeast? He thinks that they should do that and start busing Mexicans to the Vatican and see how he likes it then. So I love it because MAGA's like calling out the Pope, which is again just what's funny is 99% of MAGA, without even hearing what this is about, is on Trump's side. They're like, yeah, who's the Pope think he is? And well, he's the Pope. I mean, anyhow, so they're mad at a Pope and a bishop right now, which is kind of awesome. Um, yeah, I'm gonna read the Bible. I've read the Bible twice. It was the last time I did it was
All the
15
way
years
through?
ago, all the way through. I just
Oh
wanted
my.
to read through it with an open mind. I want to read it again. Excuse me, but I'm gonna like jot down some passages and I'm just gonna start throwing them into casual conversation with MAGA people just to gauge their reaction. And if they take that as like a liberal or whatever thing, I'm just gonna point out, oh well, this is right here and blah blah, just as
Yeah.
an experiment. I think we should both
John
start reading the
3:16.
Bible. Yeah. So anyhow, want to hear another awesome thing that happened this week?
Let's hear it.
This is another bill that was introduced this week. One of the things Trump did was he said that so this isn't the awesome bill, but Trump did like officially the United States only recognizes two genders, male and female,
I
and
saw that. Yeah.
it's decided at conception is what it says, which I
Oh.
thought was a little odd. I thought decided when they're born, but no, at conception your sex is determined is what it says in this bill.
Huh?
Apparently, first of all, according to every doctor that spoke up after this,
Impossible.
apparently all babies when they're just cells are female. Like you don't either get the XY or don't get the XY. Like either way, that doesn't happen until weeks into the process. So at conception, we're all female, and so legally by the United States, me and you are female now. First of all, but I wish I can't remember who he was, but there was a Democratic, I think it was in the House, and he introduced legislation called "Conception Begins at Erection," and he's saying that those sperm are alive. So anytime that you spill your seed without the intent to fertilize an egg, that should be a crime too. And
Oh,
the left is kind of joking about it because they're like, nah, like this is to show them how dumb what they're saying is. But I'm afraid that the right's going to take them up on their offer here and be like, yeah, masturbation's a sin. So I'm kind of like, no, like don't do this, Bill. Like I think the Democrats think the Republicans are going to be horrified by this, and I think there's a certain number of them that are going to be like, yes, like
there's a lot of them that are going to be like, yeah.
they're trying to outlaw porn in a lot of states right now, mine included. By the way, we need to. I'm gonna do a little research so we can talk about this next time. But what's interesting to me is like a lot of the terrible things that are happening right now are straight out of Project 2025. The thing that Trump and all Republicans were like, we don't know what that is. Well, they're implementing it. Like they're it's
Yeah.
the play they had a playbook and Kamala said this a couple times, but they took the time to drop a playbook. They're gonna use it and they are using it. So we're going through it. And that's what
Project 25, full force.
some of it needs to be lawsuits too. So like ending gay marriage, they're not going to try to do that with a bill to end gay marriage. They're going to strategically have a lawsuit, kind of like remember the whole cake baker in Colorado, where the whole
Yeah.
point of that was to get a stink rose and to get it up to the Supreme Court and have them decide. So that's what they're going to. The Republicans are going to try to cause something to happen, cause a stink, sue, and try to get it to the Supreme Court and get the Supreme Court to say that federally, because right now federally gay marriage is recognized, and they're
Yeah.
going to basically the goal is to get them to say that no, the federal government should have no role in this. It should be left to the states to decide, just like abortion.
Yeah.
And then you'll have people who are married and like say that you're married and you live in Minnesota, and Minnesota totally recognizes your marriage, but you have family you want to go visit in Texas. As soon as you get to Texas, your marriage is not recognized if Texas doesn't want to recognize it. And let's say one of you gets in a car wreck and is in the hospital and on life support. Well, like you don't have marital rights at that point in the hospital because you're not technically. It's a whole weird thing. Normally, I'm okay with let the states decide stuff, but like when it comes to something like that, I'm like, nah, that should be just a U.S. thing. Like we recognize gay couples getting married. There's a lot of people that don't agree with me on that. A lot of people think that gays should not be able to get married, and it's about a man and a woman and Adam and Eve, and
Yeah.
that's
Only like asshole right wingers that don't have compassion.
yeah, that's I I saw it was like a TED talk of a speech, but a guy was saying the difference, and he broke it down. They did studies, like he did studies on people, and he was talking about the way that I'm trying to say this right, the conservative brain, how the conservative brain thinks about issues versus how the Democratic brain thinks about issues. And it was interesting. People that vote Republican tend to like they trust their gut and they make a quick decision. Like you tell them what's going on and like they just listen to their gut and they don't want a lot of facts. They're just gonna boom, I'm shooting from the hip.
Yeah,
Whereas a Democrat will ask questions and they basically have empathy and even if it doesn't affect them, how's this going to affect somebody else and
right.
they'll make their decision based off that. And they said in this study, if you took the right leaning person and you then explained it to them, you could always get them to see the liberal view and to agree with the liberal view. But what this study basically figured out was that most of the right leaning, like they just get a little bit of the information. Like they like, oh, like Democrats want to let men in women's bathrooms. Like end of story. Like
Yeah.
that's like boom, I've heard enough and I know how I feel about this. Where then you can go into like, oh well, there's a case to be made. Anyhow, it was an interesting talk. I'll have to forward it to you so you can listen to it. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's basically what it comes down to. Is we always say that the right is not very informed, but I think that's how they want it. Like they don't want to sit and watch an hour news show. Like, or if they do, they want it to be quick and entertaining and engaging and kind of move from topic to topic. They don't want to sit and
Yeah.
go in depth in anything. So
Well, which is interesting about Rogan, the Rogan fan base, because
yeah, because
he's
he'll go in
3 hour
depth. That's
conversation.
he's an anomaly, the long form conversation. Like, and he does it well. His audience listens. Other people have tried to do it, and it's not as good. I don't know if you remember Barack Obama and Bruce Springsteen started a podcast like 2 years ago.
Oh yeah.
It lasted for a couple months. Nobody was listening. Like, and it's at first I was like, oh shit, Obama, like this will be number one on the charts. And no, it really wasn't like at
Hmm.
all. Hey, and back to Obama real quick. In my mind, I was like, okay, if they're gonna let people run for a third term now, like if they're gonna let Trump run for a third term, that means anybody can run for a third term.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, oh shit, like Obama could come back next time. Like if they pass this, Obama versus
Yes.
Trump in 2028. Um, but then I thought I had to really stop and think about it. Like, I don't think Obama's as popular as he was. I don't know that Obama's the right. I don't know that Obama could beat Trump.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah, and it's like who? Like, it's a shame Bill Clinton's so old because Bill Clinton still has that weird quality where like Southerners, like white country Southerners, like Bill Clinton. It doesn't make any sense, but like old white Southerners love Bill Clinton. So, but he's too old. He's not gonna be alive in 2028.
Have
Some
you heard
people
him speak
age,
recently? He's
yeah,
like he's
dude.
old.
Some people age worse than others, and like Trump being 79 is still like firing on all cylinders. Whereas I
Not
believe
all cylinders, but
not all, but he's got energy. He's moving. If I think Clinton is younger than Trump, and he looks like he's 95. Like he
yeah,
looks like he's gonna die at any minute. So anyhow, yeah. I'm trying to think here.
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. Obama would be an interesting one. Like I've heard a lot of left-wing people like talk trash about Obama though too. Just
I'm
be
telling you,
like the
Obama's not.
tax and like
Yeah,
really didn't get anything done besides the Affordable Care Act.
kind of a big
Uh,
deal, but yeah,
yeah, it was a big deal, huge deal.
yeah,
But that's the only thing he got done with all the House and the Senate on his side.
yeah. And they're mad at him because when he had the supermajority, those first 2 years, he could have gotten anything passed he wanted, and he didn't codify Roe versus Wade or like gay marriage. There was a lot of things that people look back now and they're like, he could have gotten that a federal, that could have gotten passed
Mhm.
and been law of the land, and he didn't. But you kind of got to remember, like 2008 was real different. Like in 2008, only what is that, 17 years ago? That's really that is 17 years ago. Man, we're old. But like even like Democrats, Obama and Hillary and all them weren't fully backing gay marriage at that point. Like we've come a long way, and that's part of the problem here is we progressed a whole lot in about 15 years, and now
Yeah.
we're having the backlash to that where it got too progressive too quick for a lot of people, and now where the pendulum's going to swing back the other way, and I think for the rest of our lives it's a pendulum that's swinging, and we're going to
Yeah.
go too far left, too far right, and just back and forth over and over,
Did we
and
go too far left though?
according to a lot of white Christian males in this country would say yes, we've gone too far.
Hmm.
Yeah. So and
Well,
that's
I
their
mean,
right to yeah, if that's how they feel, then they can say it.
sure.
I don't know. The next election is going to be odd for me because I truly think it's going to take a Jon Stewart type person. Like I think that's That's who it needs to be. And Jon Stewart's kind of the only one I see. Like when I say a Jon Stewart type person, I'm really saying Jon Stewart because like who else in the media world is that person that that people will listen to? And
I mean, Mark Cuban, he seems like
and
a decent guy.
I think if it was Cuban versus I like Cuban, but I think if it was Cuban versus Trump this last time, Trump wins easy.
Yeah, a billionaire versus a billionaire. I mean,
Yeah.
I think after 2 years of Trump, or even after this next year, we're going to be like, get the billionaires out of politics. I think we're going
The,
to swing. I think the pendulum is going to swing that way because it's swinging billionaire, 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 and I think they're all going to run into hiding again, like because they're all out in full force now.
yeah.
We're a
It's
billionaire. Look at my $100,000 watch.
it's totally going to come down to inflation. Like how all this billionaire stuff plays out. Like if somehow, which Trump, this is the only thing that makes me question myself is Trump is so confident right now that like, no, I can do the tariffs and I can get rid of all the illegal immigrants that are working on all of our food sources and inflation will not go up and food supply won't have an issue. Like he's very confident when he says it. And to everything I know, I'm like, that's incorrect. It's definitely going to cause inflation. We're going to have food supply issues. Like
Well,
to
there's
me, it seems so
fruit
clear.
on the trees right now.
What's that?
There's fruit dying on the trees right now because
Yeah.
the workers aren't showing up.
If somehow he threads this needle and the economy doesn't go south and he does all the things he wants to do, then he'll be invincible. I don't see how it's going to happen. And I think that like once inflation goes up, because inflation's real hard to stop and it's impossible to get it to go back down. Like once, like even Biden said it several times, but they weren't trying to bring inflation down. They were trying to stop it from continuing to go up. Like once prices go up, they don't go back down.
Right.
And
Unless we go into a full force.
full force recession, which is scary. Like that's
Yeah.
anyhow, we're about due for a recession, but that's what this is all going to hinge on is can he not have inflation spike while doing tariffs, legal immigrant raids, kicking people out of the country? Like that's going to be super interesting. And the problem is if it does go south, like will we have the power? Like even if all the middle class is up in arms about it, will we have the power to do anything about it? Like that's kind of where I'm worried. It's like, oh, like we can
Yeah.
whine and bitch all we want, but these billionaires have control over which I saw somebody was venting about this earlier, but like Elon, first of all, he owns several businesses and he's the largest recipient of government grants and whatnot, government money, government contracts of anybody out there. And now he's got a West Wing badge and he's making policy. Through Doge, he's dictating how America spends its money.
Yep.
So that is the most conflict of interest thing ever. And imagine if you're a competitor, if you're what is it called, Blue Origin, that they're trying to
Yep.
go to space too. Like that's gotta suck. Like you're competing against Elon, and Elon's in the Oval Office and deciding where the money's gonna go. Like something
Yeah.
tells me it's not going to Blue Sky, which is the only thing that makes the whole open AI thing odd is because Elon's clearly mad because Elon wants his on Twitter. It's called Grok, Grok, I believe is what he calls it, but
Oh,
that's his AI thing. And he wants that to be what the U.S. fully backs. And
yeah.
instead, Trump, that's one of those, I think Trump likes to do this where he pits people against each other. Like Elon's getting
Totally.
a little too close. Let me bring Sam Altman in. And that 100%, that's why he always has leaking from his administration. Like his first 4 years, people were leaking everywhere. And it's because people are trying to leak stuff intentionally to make somebody else look bad.
Yeah.
Like Elon leaking versus Sam Altman and vice versa. But the people around him, he likes to pick opposing, like Tulsi Gabbard and Marco Rubio have 100% different views on how they think we should handle foreign policy around the
Oh,
world. And
Rubio is a war hawk, apparently.
he's a neocon, is what they call him. But it's going to be because those two roles have to work closely together and like come to the president and like they have to be on the same page and tell the president, here's what we need to do. And I think that'll be the first spot where there's incredible tension. I'm not saying either of them is going to leave, but like there's going to be leaking and it's going to not look good because each of them is going to be leaking to the press to try to make the other one look bad or get the other one kicked out. So
Oh,
get
yeah.
ready for that. Yeah. Um,
Hmm. Interesting. That'll be fun.
yeah. So
This is gonna be such a fun 2 years.
so I'm crossing my I think about it all day long, but like I can't have the economy go south. Like I need for him to take a victory lap. I need for Canada and Mexico to make some kind of a deal, and then him say, "Oh, I'm not going to do the tariffs now because I got them to agree to whatever it is they're going to agree to. So no need to do the tariffs. If that happens in the next 9 days or 7 days now, God, like I'll be really happy. But if not, and tariffs go into effect February 1st, like
Well, it looks like Europe might be fighting back.
yeah, so Mexico and in Europe have both taken a strong stance, and at first Canada did not, but now Canada is kind of like, yeah, no, we'll find somebody else to sell our stuff to, and like the biggest thing that we get from Canada, first of all, lumber and cement and all kinds of building supplies, but also gas, like natural like
Yeah.
energy. So if they wanted to screw with us, they would cut off the gas supply, and that would just drive our prices up for like filling up your truck or whatever.
Yep.
So yeah,
This is gonna be fun 2 years. Like I said, it's gonna be.
it's gonna be
Keep
great.
telling myself that. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
keep telling myself that
It's easier when you smile through it. So
till the midterms.
yeah, I'm worried about the midterms. I said the other night that I see no way that they keep the House. But then I remembered Elon was very effective with the swing states and whatever he was doing. And Trump said something weird recently where he said that Elon knows those voting machines inside and out and blah blah blah.
Oh,
And the way he said it made everybody kind of go, hold on, wait, is he saying that Elon cheated? Like what is he? And it's one of those where I think Trump just didn't say what he was trying to say right.
there was
Um,
that conspiracy theorist about Elon using his Starlink over the
yeah.
some of the cities and
So
I don't know,
I'm
tapping into those voting machines. Well,
how
but we're
long?
going to paper ballots, remember?
We'll see if that happens. It's going to make Trump's whole thing is he wants paper ballots and he wants the results to be on the same day as the election. He wants to know who won. And
That's
with paper
impossible.
ballots, that's almost impossible to do. So
Yep.
let's see how that works out. What it'll come down to, and with MAGA, and I'm gonna let me pick on the Democrats real quick. Like with Biden, for example, like even after it started looking like Biden's definitely declining, like we got a problem. Like Biden's not all there anymore. There are a lot of Democrats that were like, no, no, he's good. Like he's still good. I was like that until the debate. Like I kept, you'd have people say, "Hey, man, Biden," and I'm like, "Ah, Biden's old. He's fine." As soon as the debate happened, that's when I was like, "Oh shit,
Right.
we got a
Right.
problem."
Well,
But
I think he was having a bad day. Like, obviously, he's 81 years old, but he's got done some interviews recently. Like his last couple interviews,
he
exiting
came
interviews were good. We're,
he came out like 2 days after the debate and did a rally somewhere and seemed just like old Joe.
yeah.
But that day, apparently, they had him on cold medicine and everything. Either way, though, alarming. We have a problem, was my view. But there were still people that put their head in the sand and they were like, no, no, Biden's tip top. He's doing good. So
He's
both sides do this. MAGA, I'm wondering, like, say inflation goes up, price of eggs. That's all we heard about leading up to the election was the price of eggs. If inflation goes up, how long can they basically put on a fake smile and be like, no, we're fine. Like, there's no inflation, and like continue to support Trump until they finally at some point turn and say, okay, no, this is not cool. Like, and they get mad at Trump. How? Because I think they can do it for a year and a half, and that's all they got to do it for till the midterms.
yeah. Yeah.
So during the even we could be in the middle of inflation and things aren't going good economy wise, but they will, if Joe Rogan and whoever else is telling them that everything's fine, and they're like, no, no, everything's fine, and they go out and vote Republican again, that's the one way I think we're screwed. And that's what scared me is somebody said that the other day. We're only a year and a half away from the midterms. Like midterms are in November of 2026.
Yep.
So yeah, he's got to hold the economy together for that long. We'll see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I'll roll with the punches, man. Keep
Yep.
on cranking. That's all we can do, right?
I told I told you even way back before the election, that I was worried Trump was going to win, and then I told you I was like, if he wins, I'm not stressing about it, and I'm still there. Like even some of the stuff that I'm back to, for forever. I didn't have the news on during the day. Like the last couple of years, I just kind of tuned out, and now I'm back to the news is on right beside my computer all day long, and I just kind of glance over to see what's happening, and I'll see some stuff, and I'm like, what? I'll start to catch myself getting like not emotional, but like worked up about
Yeah.
it. And then I almost have to slap myself and be like, nope, like just going back to work. Like I'll later on, I'll take a look at that. But no, we're good right now. So I'm
Yeah.
not going to get worked up over any of this. So
Are
we're
you wearing
fine.
a hoodie? I thought you were going to start wearing a suit and tie.
I am wearing a hoodie. I meant to wear a quarter zip tonight, but I'm dealing.
God.
I got a kid my kid's at an age now where she's never tired and doesn't want to go to bed.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, bedtime wasn't hard for several years, and now bedtime is like a struggle. And like, she just begs for more TV or more of this and that, and it's like, get over it,
Yeah.
kid. So yeah, so I was rushing to get to the computer tonight.
Hmm.
So anyhow, countdown. Hold on. What do we got? 7. We got about 2 weeks till you're here.
Oh yeah. Yep. Coming
Two
in.
weeks. Yeah.
Coming in
So
hot. we'll be recording live, playing some disc golf, and yeah, eating oysters. I'm
Yeah, a little
excited.
casino action. Are you still off the sauce?
I am. I am.
Is that going to last 2 more weeks?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, good for you, first of all. But
Yeah.
like when you told me you were like, yeah, I'm not drinking. I'm not going to drink for a while. At first I was bummed because I was like, oh, I want to. There's some places I want to take you where we can go get like a drink. And then I
That's fine.
thought about it, and I was like, oh, that's a month from now. He won't still be doing that in a month. But here you are with your willpower, so
I've
it's
got
fine.
it. Yes.
You're still
I'll
gonna have
drink
to go
it. I'll
somewhere.
drink an NA beer.
You're gonna have to go places with me and watch me eat oysters and have like a whiskey, and you
Mm.
can just you can be my sober friend. It'll be fine.
It's gonna be yeah, interesting.
Yeah, so awesome. We'll look forward to it. We'll get back on here in a couple days. Don't forget to follow us on Blue Sky. What's our Blue Sky show handle?
Confident Idiocracy Pod, I believe,
Okay,
or
and then
podcast.
mine is Confident Idiot Andy, I believe.
Yep. And
Yeah,
like and subscribe on the YouTube.
yes. Uh, are we gonna have a special guest coming up soon?
I think so. I texted her today and I didn't
Okay,
hear back. So,
I'm
but
excited for that. The more I think about it, the more excited I am. So yeah, you let me know when that's confirmed. We'll hop on here.
yeah, it'll be
So,
fun. It'll be good.
all right.
Um, cool, man.
Have a
Well,
good night,
I'll
buddy.
talk to you soon. Later.
Later.